that in the great history of the world, countries like ours don't survive, and that you need a core group of people who are devoted to the Constitution that will stand as a bulwark against progressivism.
How excited, Brian, are you to see people that are the media doesn't understand these Tea Parties, or maybe they do and they're trying to because it's a progressive. Yeah. But it's not about really anything other than small government, reasonable spending, low taxes, and follow the Constitution. People in their gut, they know.
Right.
That must be exciting for somebody who's been watching this for 30 years.
Absolutely. People know that government's supposed to do a few things and do them very well, like national security, build roads, print money, those kind of things. Government's not supposed to do these other things. But we see government today trying to do absolutely everything when it comes to the economy and society writ large. And we know it's not working.
Oh, I mean, that's clear. I have 1 minute here. This California Secretary of State website, learncalifornia.org, where you can learn California history. It has content for teachers for their lesson plans. Looked up progressivism. In it, it talks about how great progressivism is. In the progressive movement lies the roots of a strong liberal tradition in California, a liberalism that would no doubt horrify some of the rather conservative progressives. At the same time, the hopes of the leftist progressives. They hope that progressivism would be the first step in an evolutionary socialism. They may be a little disappointed, however. But the expanded activist government initiated by the progressives was a prerequisite for the welfare state, despite the fact that progressives concerned themselves primarily with moral and political reform after the New Deal. It talks about how it is altering already much of the Constitution. They succeeded in altering the political mindset for the state. This is all presented in a good way.
Absolutely.
How do you possibly survive when your children are being taught that progressivism and changing the Constitution slowly like this, evolving it, is a good thing?
Well, remember this. We're not going to ever become like Europe. And the reason is simple. We're Americans. We have these Tea Parties. Look at your success. Look at the success of conservatives all over America. When the American people hear the right argument, they do the right thing, whether it's a Tea Party or Massachusetts or New Jersey. And I have hope about California. You can win California back. And if you ever won California back for the conservative movement, you would change America.
Brian, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Next, closer look at some of our favorite California progressives. I'm lying. I don't have a single favorite progressive. Back in a second. California has become quite a hotbed for all kinds of radicals, communists, socialists, all in the 1960s, but they were here before, progressives. Now eco-terrorists, they're here. You have the Panthers formed here. Nancy Pelosi is here. A lot of really dangerous people in a state as volatile as this one, and it is on the edge. One of those radical communists from California is Van Jones. Here's a guy who, was hanging out with cop killers. He was a 9/11 truther. I told you, he can't be just, can't scurry under the refrigerator like a cockroach after the lights are turned out. You had to hold him responsible because he'll resurface again. Well, he has. He'll be speaking alongside New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand next month. Next month in New York. David Horowitz is the publisher of RealNewsBlog.com, former radical himself. You were a guy, if I read history in the 1960s, you're part of all of these people that we're now talking about. All of the radicals, progressives, the revolutionaries. David, any doubt in your mind that a guy like Van Jones wants to not just transform America into something, but I mean a very radically different America that Americans would not even begin to understand?
He's what I call a neo-communist. You know, we have neo-conservatives, neo-fascists, but somehow we don't have neo-communists. These are people who have the same vision that communists. I grew up, of course, in the communist community. My parents were communists. Van Jones will not disappear. He's a fellow at the Center for American Progress.
I know.
Which is the brains trust of the Democratic Party.
When I said they were going to sweep him out, they did. They swept him out on a holiday weekend at midnight, and I came back that next Tuesday and said, this is the worst thing that could happen because he's still in the system. He is, and he's never going away, is he?
No.
we have to chase these people and keep a spotlight on them all the time.
Yeah, well, the old communists are revived by this progressive movement. It is a movement, and it's a culture. The Rosenbergs are still innocent. Richard Nixon is still the enemy. McCarthy did not actually expose people who were working for the Soviet Union, which he did.
I want to take you to, this is from Larry King with Angie Dickinson for the full hour, and then also, what's her name? This is John McCain's daughter, and this is why I say John McCain is a progressive. He's an honorable man, but he's a progressive. And they don't work together. The progressive and the Constitution don't work together. Listen to his daughter on Larry King.
I consider myself a progressive Republican.
Okay. Such a thing as a progressive Republican that can stand... Can a progressive... This is what I'm trying to convince America of. Can a progressive work with the Constitution?
Not in the way it's understood by these people, no.
Okay.
The Constitution is a conservative document. First of all, it distrusts the people. It makes the people sovereign, but then it puts all these checks and balances in their way. And of course, originally senators weren't even elected.
Okay. Hang on just a second, because I want to come back in just a second. I want to ask David about a couple of people that, I mean, this is such a hotbed in California. How do you turn things around? This is ground zero in many ways. But David Horowitz, next.
The leadership of Harry Bridges, followed by Jimmy Herman, the ILWU, faced head-on the great political challenges of our nation.
Back with David Horowitz. He is the publisher of RealNewsBlog.com, former radical himself from California. I want to give you another quote from Nancy Pelosi. Can you bring up the quote from Nancy Pelosi? Do you have the other quote? Harry Bridges was arguably the most significant labor leader of the 20th century, beloved by the workers of this nation and recognized as one of the most important labor leaders in the world. Who was Harry Bridges?
Harry Bridges was an Australian labor leader whom the government during the Cold War tried to deport for 10 years because he was saying he was a member of the Communist Party and therefore basically an agent of the Soviet Union. He denied it all the way. Then when the Berlin Wall fell and the Soviet archives were opened, it turned out he was on the Central Committee of the American Communist Party. He was one of the leaders of the Communist Party. And in 1998, everybody knew this, but it's Pelosi's hero.
Why did Sweeney from, AFL-CIO change and say, hey, we don't need to have any of those rules to keep communists out of the labor unions? This was just a few years ago.
Right. The big break, there was a big break in 1948. During when the Progressive Party was formed and the Cold War, Walter Reuther, who was a socialist, drove the communists out of the CIO, out of the unions, because they were agents of the Soviet Union, which was a slave empire and our enemy. Sweeney and these guys, and like you say, Van Jones doesn't go away, the communists don't go away. The progressives stayed, and now they just embrace.
When the president says, I'm a progressive, they call me a Marxist. He's not a Marxist, is he? Progressives, it's made out of the Marxist stew. But do I have it right, David, when I say it's the difference between evolution? What you were going for in the 60s was revolution. Progressives, evolution.
In a nutshell, conservatives guide everything they do by looking at the past, the experience. This is what human beings are. This is the way they behave. This is the limits. This is what you can hope for with these people. Progressives govern everything from the future. They have this imaginary future, which is the ideal world of social justice, and they judge everything by that future.
This is why when they come to us and say, our budgets are going to be, it's only going to cost this amount, is because they're not basing it on, because everybody always says, wait a minute, you've never been right in the history of America. You're always wrong. There's always something that comes up that changes this, and they don't see it.
They are there to change the world. Conservatives go to Washington to fix government. Liberals, progressives, leftists go to Washington to change the world. So they want power. And the power, they think, can reshape the way people think and the way people are.
Is this the biggest hotbed of progressive thinking here in California?
Well, California is a very progressive state. However, in last May, it rejected 5 initiatives to raise taxes.
All right.
So
David, appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Back in just a second with final thoughts. I can't thank you enough, America, for watching the program every day and meeting me here at 5 o'clock, especially people who are out in the West. I mean, it's now 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know why anybody's watching it. Get to work. What's wrong with California? We'll see you back here tomorrow from Los Angeles. Good night, America.